And joining us for reaction, Democratic Congressman from Washington and ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, Congressman Adam Smith. Congressman, thank you for joining us on American Agenda. We appreciate your coming back. Let's first start with the issue at hand in Texas. Do you think these Democratic lawmakers went too far by fleeing the state and remaining, I'm going to say, at large?
I do not. And that was an incredibly dishonest presentation there. I mean, to have a balanced presentation.
Why so?
You want to give me a second?
Sure. Go ahead.
Take a look at Wisconsin. Take a look at Florida. Take a look at North Carolina. I will agree with you. The gerrymandering is a bipartisan thing, but that's not the story that you just presented. You presented it as Democrats. Wisconsin is a state that's pretty much 50-50. Republicans have 7 out of 9 seats. North Carolina, also 50-50, and I forget the exact number, but I think it's like 3 Democrats and 12. This is something that Republicans have done every little bit as aggressively as Democrats have done, and your presentation there gave an entirely false impression of that balance, and I don't think that's honest journalism, number one. Number two, one of the problems that Democrats tend to have in this regard is like California. California, we, by initiative, not we, the state of California, by initiative, passed a nonpartisan redistricting commission. So the state legislature doesn't control it in California. So the California districts are a lot more fairly balanced because it's done by people who are not partisan. But the thing to remember here is what is unprecedented is the president of the United States told the Texas legislature in the middle of a 10 years, right in the middle of when you normally do redistricting, he ordered them to do a new redistricting round. And let's keep in mind, Texas controlled the legislature when they did the redistricting in 2022 and drew a map that also there's a higher percentage of Republican members of Congress in Texas right now than of the percentage of vote that they got in the presidential election. But he wants to go further and do this so that he can pick up an additional 5 seats. Now, traditionally, what has happened, every 10 years you do a census, and that means that, well, 2022, that would be when the new maps would come out. It is unprecedented, and something only Republicans have ever done is to go after that in the middle of a 10-year period and order redistricting again. They actually did this in Texas back in 2004 after they won control of the state legislature in 2002. So that is what is unprecedented. Now, what needs to happen is you need to have redistricting that is nonpartisan in all the states and do it based on demographics. But to paint a picture that somehow Democrats are the ones doing gerrymandering and not Republicans is frankly laughable.
So you don't think that those states that I just pointed out there have any gerrymandered lines whatsoever there?
Did you not listen to what I just said?
No, I did.
I don't. Yes, they were gerrymandered.
Okay, there you go. You just pointed to Republicans. That's all you said. It was so you said what I said was untruthful journalism, and then you just said no, they are gerrymandered. So
that's a different
it
thing.
sounded like you didn't like what I had to say more than anything.
Do you think that Republicans have gerrymandered Wisconsin, North Carolina, Florida, and Texas, amongst other states? Do you believe that Republicans have gerrymandered those states?
I think President Trump is making things fair.
All right. So you will not honestly answer the question that I just honestly answered that you asked me.
Look, hey, elections have consequences.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in.
You're just against Democrats.
Well, Congressman,
you want to set up.
They're the ones that have problems doing it down in Texas. I was just pointing out the hypocrisy of it.
Right, and I just asked you a very simple question. Do you believe that Republicans have gerrymandered in that state? And you could not bring yourself to answer it in the honest way that I answered the question that you asked me. And I don't get that.
Maybe it goes on. It might go both ways, but elections do have consequences here. Go ahead.
Yeah,
so you don't have a problem with gerrymandering.
Well,
so you
no, Congressman,
Democrats gerrymandering in Illinois because they won the election, so they ought to have the right to gerrymander in Illinois. You think they should because they won
Congressman,
the
I'm going to jump in here. But what I want to point out is, again, I don't like to do the arguing, but what I do like to do is try to make sense of what everybody is saying. And I do think it is quite clear and a fact that both parties are guilty of, if you want to use that word, gerrymandering. So it is something that both parties are doing. And Congressman, what you were saying is that the districts should be made up or redrawn where necessary based not on party lines.
It shouldn't be a partisan process. And the only thing that's unprecedented here, as I said, is for the president of the United States to order a particular state to again redraw their maps after redistricting has been done. That is something that only Republicans have done. And that is why I think it has warranted a pretty strong reaction from Democrats and frankly from everyone in Texas.
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. But Congressman, do you think, but I understand what you're saying there, but I just think of these lawmakers in Texas who have been hired by people who live in Texas, by their constituents, and they just literally walked out on their job. So I'm thinking more of, hey, if someone was working for me in whatever fashion, just because they didn't like something that was going on, I'll say in the workplace, for them just to disappear doesn't give me much confidence in them.
Yeah, well, it depends on why. I mean, we are looking at a situation where the state legislature is going to just totally change the law in the middle of it to take away representation from a fair number of people in the same way that you outlined was a problem in Maryland and Illinois. That's what's happening in Texas. And, you know, extreme circumstances sometimes require extreme measures. And it's not just Democrats that have done this move in different places.
Well, a lot of unprecedented things happened over the last 4 years under Biden's watch.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What's that?
So a lot of unprecedented things happened under the last 4 years under the previous administration. So,
yeah, well,
there are
a lot of unprecedented things happening right now under Trump, including when you don't like the labor statistics, you just shoot the messenger and fire. There we go.
How about they get the numbers right? How about that? How about not a 90% misfire on those numbers, which it was? How are you 90% off? All right, we got to leave it there. Congressman, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for the chance. Appreciate it.
Have a great weekend.